You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
All right, presented by Betano.ca for the Thursday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga in with guest co-host, of course, Anthony Stewart. It's American Thanksgiving. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. I don't think I'll be celebrating. I ate too much turkey at the last Thanksgiving, so I'm taking it easy today.
Are you a big turkey guy? I'm guessing you are.
Yeah. Turkey sandwiches the next day, turkey soup, turkey clubs, turkey for me.
For anybody out there, Stewie's a phenomenal follow on Instagram specifically because the fam jam, as you call it, like the family gatherings with the food you guys like, it's next level, man. It's insane.
Yeah, I used to say my sister is like a king lasagna maker, and I used to always brag about it being better than Italy. But I actually recently went to Italy, and it's a whole different level out there too. But it's a good lasagna.
Yeah, it's a bit different, but that's awesome, man. I'm a big foodie as well, as you know, and I am in the States, so it's like really, really weird because I was out last night and everybody's like, Happy Thanksgiving. I'm like, my Thanksgiving's in October, but like try explaining to an American that we have our own Thanksgiving. It takes a while.
Yeah, the one thing is I'm not even a big NFL guy, but it is big over there, football all day, every day. So again, when I was there, I was living the tradition, and that's why I was watching football.
Yeah, and so I wanted to answer the question because people were wondering yesterday. I brought this up on the show to Rosie, actually. I said, hey, should it be a full send on Drinksgiving? They call it Wednesday night special, Drinksgiving. Apparently, it's the busiest bar day of the year. And I'm here to report it was a green light special last night, and I did go out. But I made the game, so I'm playing wounded today.
That's great. They don't say how, they say how many. But again, I'm dry November, December. Until tonight. I'm actually doing an Easter Seals event, Rick 5 tomorrow. So I imagine there might be some root beers flying around tonight at the draft party.
I love it. So I'm playing guilty. It reminds me like your playing days. How often do guys play guilty on the road, man? It feels like anytime a guy lit it up on the road, you know he was out the night before, eh?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, and I don't think it happens much this time and age. But back when I was coming, there was some party animals. I actually had a late night one night in Vancouver where I was partying with Cuba Gooding Jr. And let's just say I played guilty, and I had to get a fight early to at least have something on the score sheet because the legs were not there.
Oh man, I'm not there mentally right now, but I'm ready to talk some Toronto Maple Leafs. I am here mentally, don't worry. Dave Bolland's coming up on the show today. I also wanted to get your opinion. I hope you caught this, but I watched this again over and over and over and over and over again. Greg Popovich, man. Like, did you see that? That's the most outrageous thing I've ever seen in my life.
Bank Arena, the fans are booing, and you get Sheldon Keefe, stop booing. You guys in the lounge, be quiet. That's hilarious, but there's maybe one or two guys in professional sports that can get away with it and not get eviscerated. I think he's one of them too. So I'm not sure if they stopped booing afterwards, but when Pop speaks, I think a lot of people listen. But that was amazing.
Apparently, it got progressively louder. So for those of you who are unaware what I'm talking about, Greg Popovich, the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, got on the PA of the building last night when Kawhi Leonard was there with the LA Clippers. And I guess apparently they're still booing Kawhi Leonard in San Antonio, which makes no sense. Like, he's been gone for almost a decade at this point. But like, this guy went on the PA. Like, that's a great comparison. It's like Sheldon Keefe being, you know what, Mike Ross, can I have the mic for like 10 seconds and just spew off and shit on these people for booing? But maybe it just shows you that Pop just owns that team. Like, he could do what he wants.
Yeah, he seems like he's part of the San Antonio mob there. He's in the fabric of the city, and that doesn't make sense why they're booing him. But, you know, the one thing I can tell you, I don't think I've ever been booed, but when they are booing, you notice it for 3-4 seconds, and that's it. You're so dialed into the game. So I know he's trying to help Kawhi, but, you know, you see him. There's no breaking him, and he probably didn't even notice, to be honest with you.
I'm happy you brought that up. So, like, you mentioned that, like, as an athlete, you're going to get booed sometimes. I don't know if it was to the same level, like when you return to Florida, but like, how does it impact the player? Because like I, you know, especially in this market, I remember John Tavares' first game on Long Island, dude. They're throwing like rubber snakes at the guy. Does it matter on like who the person is, how long they were there?
No, it's funny because your teammates sort of give it to you. They give it to you and they start to smile. But I'll tell you, that was one of my fears going into the
Yeah.
National Hockey League, just the crowd noise and how many people, and you're looking at how big the arena is. But once you're in an actual game, it's almost your periphery is non-existent. You don't even notice it. So they used to have a game, spot the person in the yellow coat, because that's how hard it is to focus on the crowd. So when you weren't playing a lot, hey, go find somebody with a yellow coat. But when you're on that ice, you don't hear or notice anything. It's like you're almost in the Matrix, which is kind of weird.
No, it's funny, and I figured it was that way, and like even with Kawhi Leonard, like it reminds me even back in the day when Kobe Bryant was like such a superstar in the league, and there's so many videos of this guy just looking straight ahead, like had no clue what was going on. But then, like for anybody who's been to a sporting event, and you've been like, I was there when Vince Carter returned to Air Canada Center at the time as a New Jersey Net, and like it was hostile. But I always wondered from that perspective how the athlete feels. But that does make a lot of sense. It goes away after a couple moments, and that's how it goes. So Dave Bolland's coming up. I wanted to draw some parallels, of course, to the game coming up tomorrow. Dave Bolland, of course, a former Toronto Maple Leaf, won 2 Stanley Cups with Chicago. So he's coming up in about 15 minutes at the Leafs Nation 401, where you can subscribe here on YouTube, at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast as well. Just search us and we'll pop up on your screen. Brought to you by DoorDash. It's time for the appetizer. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off, up to $10 in value, and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter code NATION25. That's code NATION25 for 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Don't forget, uppercase and the Nation25. Offer valid in Canada, subject to change, and terms apply. So turkey upheaval, you've worked in this industry for a long, long time. You played in the league. How much stock do you put into the standings at American Thanksgiving?
Well, it's funny because I read all the analytics, and then I read all the articles saying you need to be within 4 points of striking distance of a playoff spot or you're done. But in the National Hockey League, you do it in 5-game segments. I think there's 16. I think we talked about 16 5-game segments, and they're at segment 3 right now. So when you put that in perspective from the team, you feel that you're still in it. So if it's segment 8, 9, and you're now 10 points, it's going to be too tough of a hill to climb. So as the players, you can't get too far ahead or look, because regardless if you're in the playoffs or not, guys are playing for things other than wins. Guys are playing for contracts. Guys are playing to stay in the league. Guys are playing for points. So there's that. You can't just say, we're 4 points out, the season's over, because from a player management coaching perspective, they don't look at it like that too. So yes, we know the rules, and rules are meant to be broken, but there's some teams that are sort of below that threshold right now that I still think can get into the playoffs. And you can't just say, well, we're in the playoffs right now, we can just coast it. But as a player, you break it down to every 5 games. And I think even if you're going to say, hey, we have to do a long-term assessment of this team, it's usually Christmas or right after Christmas is where, hey, you know what, we're going to start maybe getting rid of some guys for some draft picks and looking towards next year. But if you take a night off, a shift off, a week off, guys know, your teammates know, management knows, and you get labeled a problem. So you have to continually work hard, have a positive attitude, buy in. If not, you'll get labeled and you'll be out of the league a lot sooner than later.
I love the perspective that obviously our various co-hosts on this show, you, Jay Rosehill, Carter Hutton, bring to the table. Because again, I wasn't able to play obviously at a high level in any sport, namely the NHL. And I think you bring perspective, like even following it as a fan or a media member, not to get too high, not to get too low, right? I think you look specifically, Stewie, at this market. It's pretty insane. Like 17 games through, and it feels like I've been through the Cold War, man. Like it feels like it's been 5 years. Like, man, it's hilarious to me. And it's not to poke at Edmonton, but you look at McDavid, the guy looks so tired. Like he looks spent, man. It's like not even the 20-game mark of the season,
Yeah, and for Edmonton, to put things into perspective a little bit more, it's not about the losses, it's about how they're losing, right? And if you have to try to come back from winning, try to come back, down 2-3 goals, or you got to win games, 7-5, that emotional roller coaster that weighs on you. And it's not just the play for Connor McDavid, it's just the stress of the year, and you can see it literally on his face. He cannot hide it. And so that's why in the league, in 82 games, you got to have some easy wins. If you're coming back, you're going to run out of gas, you're going to run out of juice a lot sooner than later. So that's where those top teams that are contenders every single year, they win those games 4-1 or 5-2, and they cruise, and they have all 4 lines contributing. Because if you only have 2 lines and 2D and a goalie thinking that you're going to run through 82 game season, once you get to those playoffs, you're going to be out a lot sooner than later.
Producer Aaron writes in, I've aged 12 years in 18 games, and that's bang on, I think, when you look at Edmonton. I think we're feeling a bit better about the Maple Leafs. They're in a playoff spot. Again, it's tough to contextualize it. Of course, the Leafs have played, 2 games in the last 2 weeks, back in action tomorrow against Chicago, matinee affair on Black Friday, and then the Kyle Dubas revenge game in Pittsburgh on Saturday. What's your overall feeling on this Leafs team? We haven't talked in a bit here.
Well, it's funny now that I'm sort of on this side of it, and I consider myself a Toronto sports fan. It's there can't be any high or low. There is a high that it's too high, and there's a low too low. But the team's winning. They just won 4 games in a row, and it's like, well, they didn't deserve to win. They're not playing good hot, and I'm like, win's a win, right? And you got to appreciate the little things and the stuff that's going on with this group. And you talk about a player like Willie Nylander. He just came over, a rock star to Sweden. Now he's an even superstar coming back, 17-game point streak. Matthews is up there amongst the league leaders. So a lot of things are clicking right now. You saw Samsonov falter a little bit too, but Joseph Wall stepping in too. So there's a lot of great things about this group. You saw the third line stabilize. You saw Robertson that's doing pretty well as well. Matthew Nyes is scoring. You're seeing some of the fourth line guys come out of nowhere and step up. So it's a long season. And I think as a fan, you got to learn to appreciate it, not poke little holes. And it's funny. I was talking to somebody, I don't know, maybe I think I was in Pittsburgh, and I was just talking about just the stress of, we were talking about, it was actually a former Leaf, actually. I'm not going to say if he was in Pittsburgh or Washington. And it was just the stress of every single little detail the media is talking about. It's like, why are we talking about what Pierre Engvall did in the second period? It's such a microcosm of the overall scope of what happens with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So it weighs on the players. It does weigh on the players because it's like, there's other markets you can walk to the rink and they won't notice you walking out of the rink. And but it comes with the territory. It comes with part of being a Toronto Maple Leaf, because when you win and you're successful, you're going to be a legend. I'm going to go see guys like Darcy Tucker and Wendell Clark. Those guys are legends for the rest of their life because what they did for the blue and white too. So for me, it was tough. I had an opportunity to sign with the Maple Leafs, but the stress, it was too much for me at my career. I didn't want to risk it. They could have buried my career, my contract on the way to burying 5 of my contracts. But the guys that come in and are successful, they're legends for the rest of their life.
It's great to hear you touch base with Colby Armstrong recently in Pittsburgh. That's always fantastic.
It wasn't Colby. I almost faded out who it was, but it wasn't.
Yeah, no, it's fair. No, that means you're a true teammate, my man. Yeah. Did you see my new shtick on social media?
Yeah, the new $9 million man. You're ruffling some.
It's fucking ridiculous. Okay,
where did you find that? What's the original? I know you're chirping somebody on that because you're usually on there chirping, but it's pretty funny.
I'm not picking anybody. A lot of engagement
on that. Please explain that.
Okay, so the explanation behind this, it's always fucking Toronto, where it's like Nylander's going to get 13 mil. Like they're talking to rival executives now. Like it's only. I asked Brian Burke, who we worked together with on Hockey Central. I asked him this yesterday, why this is the case, and there wasn't really an answer. So now I'm like, I'm going to spin it the other way. I got Florida Panthers fans at me today, man, because I'm talking about Sam Reinhart, his contract here. No way the Florida Panthers are going to be able to afford him. I'm going to do it for every player. Marchessault, Stamkos. So let's turn it back the other way and see how the opposition feels about it.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I actually, after I read that tweet, I went on Hockey DB and looked up Reinhart. I'm like, yeah, maybe he could get $1 million. But you make a good point. It is the hockey mecca.
Oh man,
a lot of the media runs through Toronto, and a lot of the headlines runs through Toronto, and I have to be conscious of it too on other shows, right? Because it is the center of the hockey universe, and you get the most engagement, the most clicks, but it is a different market. But it goes back to, if they win a cup with this group, you're not partying in Jacksonville. You're not going back to Jacksonville. You're going to be in Toronto at Two Cats for the next 2 years celebrating that. That's how big it would be in this market. So There's a lot of stress. Yeah, there's a lot of stress. What's going to happen with Nylander? But that comes with the territory. It comes with the territory. And again, the one thing you can say with him, he's wheeling around in a tank top. It's not affecting him. I think it's actually invigorating and giving him more juice to play even better.
Dude, it's so funny you brought that up because our mutual friend Devontae Smith-Pelly, we had him on a couple weeks back when they played Washington or whatever, and I asked him about the time last spring, me and Devo hit the town after the Leafs beat Tampa, and he was like rolling his eyes. Like, this guy won a fucking Stanley Cup, and he's like, why are people celebrating for he's like, I get it. He's like, I totally get it, but like, he was rolling his eyes.
There's guys that are sitting down, in a hospital bed, probably in their house, watching every single game, waiting to die. But that's sports, right? And that's the power of sports. And now that I'm retired, I have an appreciation for it. I have an appreciation for the Toronto sports fan, and it's a big part of a lot of people's lives. And there's a lot more dangerous vices than being a Toronto sports fan. So again, I love it. Again, you see me, I get chirped all the time on Twitter. I love the engagement. I love, the random Leaf accounts with a picture of a player, and they're just chirping all day. I love all of it. I love it. It's good for the game.
I live for it as well.
I still get the Jack Campbell tweets. That was 2 years ago, and they put it on my timeline like I said it yesterday. I'm like, that suit that I was wearing doesn't even fit me anymore. You should know that. That was 2 years ago when I was a lot thinner.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I was thinking of you yesterday. Won't lie. There was a list put out there, top 10 goalies of all time in the Leafs for the Leafs. And
where's Cujo? Like, come on, that's farming for engagement. Where is Cujo?
Yeah, they did it on purpose. I'm not going to mention who because they don't sponsor us. But Cujo wasn't on there, and Jack Campbell wasn't on there, and Ben Scrivens wasn't on there either.
I was going to say, what about Toskala? Didn't Toskala play some good hockey for the Leafs?
I just remember I'm like, I wanted Nabokov, and they got Vesa Toskala, and
my point is, it goes back to my point. There's that guy on his deathbed saying, in 1946, friggin' Gump Walmsley. There were some names there I didn't recognize, but again, I know the appreciation for some of the older Leafs because again, they won. Those are guys that won cups, and they're still legends, right? I don't know if they're still around, but they're still legends.
Because we talk about that a lot on this show, where it's like, if you win, you'll be a hero in this city. But like, even to an extent of like the importance of a Gilmore, as you mentioned, a Clark, like this team still hasn't won in a long, long time. But I just think it's more so how they played the game and their importance to the market, to the city, the attachment to the fans. Like I wonder sometimes, like, maybe it's an unfair example, but like how Austin Matthews will be perceived in 25 years, 30 years, Mitch Marner, Willie Nylander. You think it'll be to that effect, even if they don't win? Like, obviously, fingers crossed that they do win, but even if they don't win, people remember them like that?
I think so, because I go around the rinks right now, and I deal with a lot of kids on the ice, and these guys are superheroes to these kids. And you ask 10 different kids, you're going to get 10 different answers. Who your favorite Leaf is? Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, William Nylander. And just seeing their social media of them at a game, and they're in the 300th level, zooming in on the light on ice level during warmup. There's my favorite player. So these guys are transcending just on the ice into superstardom with some of the fans. So in the next 10, 15, 20 years, when it's all said and done, we'll be talking about all of those guys as all-time great Leafs. And if they win,
immortalized,
build the statues.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Because again, you talk about Clark and Sittler and guys like that, and that's the hope, that's the expectation. We should bring in today's guest. The following interview is brought to you by Sober Carpenter. Hold the alcohol, keep the flavor, enjoy a range of non-alcoholic beers so good that you'll think it's the real thing. Look for Sober Carpenter at Sobeys, Loblaws, Whole Foods, Metro, Farm Boy, and other retailers today. As we bring in former Toronto Maple Leaf, two-time Stanley Cup champion, it is Dave Bolland. How are you, Dave?
What's going on, guys?
Not too much. Great to have you on today. Maybe you could piggyback off what we were just talking about. Like, what was your feel coming to Toronto? Obviously being a bit of a local product, but what was that feel when you showed up in Toronto?
I loved it. I remember getting traded just after I scored the game-winning goal for the Blackhawks. So
not a big deal.
I think it was like 2 weeks later because it was that year's a lockout. So I think it was Carbomb and we were watching golf at my house, and I saw a call coming from Stan, and I was like, and I kind of knew what was going on during the season. There was some chatter that some guys had to go because of the cap and everything. So I got the call from Stan. He's like, "Hey, what's happening?" I'm like, "Well, kind of know what's going on here. I think I know the issue." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "We traded you." He's like, "But I'm gonna send you back home to Toronto." So to hear that from Stan after helping them win 2 Stanley Cups was great. But when I got traded to Toronto, I was like, "Oh, even better." I was excited. I couldn't wait to get there, just to being from Toronto and being from Etobicoke or Mimico. It was a dream come true.
Dave, we were just talking about like how different, how unique this market is. Like Stewie mentioned, he had the opportunity to sign with the Leafs back in the day, didn't choose to. And even in this market, we're still talking about Luke Shen leaving, going to Nashville. Specifically, Ryan O'Reilly got a bit of heat, but I totally get it. Did it bother you at all? Maybe it was a bit different. You came from Chicago, where obviously you're in the spotlight as well there. But like, did it bother you at all, like playing in the market and dealing with the media?
No, I loved it actually. I kind of like it. I kind of rally behind it, and for me, it was kind of the same as Chicago. Those Chicago fans are tough. They're not
Yeah.
easy when they're down. They get on you and they give it to you pretty hard. So when I came to Toronto, the media, the fans, they didn't really bug me. As long as you show up and play and you work hard, anywhere, I think the fans aren't going to say much, or the media's going to say much. But I think if you take a few nights off or a few months off, they're going to be all over you.
Did you actually have any interactions with the fans negatively? I know Steger, the infamous story where someone threw dog poop on his car in his condo or something like that. Any of that happened to you?
No, that didn't happen to me. But I can see that happen to Steger for sure. He opens up his mouth a little too much, than I do. But I've never had that story.
Stewie?
Going back to, we were talking earlier about just if they win a cup in this market, how much legends that they would be. How is it for you every time you go back to Chicago? I see all the videos on Instagram. I still follow you and what you're doing. How is it when you go back to Chicago and just interacting with the fans? Like, you guys are legends there. Same as London as well. I know not as much as London, but
Rich Monroe, eh?
More, little more, yeah. We just get all the Western students in London. Yeah, when we go back to Chicago, it's like right when you step off the plane, it's like people greet you everywhere. Like it's just everywhere you go. You go to a restaurant, someone always sees you. That someone notices you. Or the fans love you. When you get wherever you go, you get taken care of anywhere. But like you said, if Toronto wins, they'll be legends till they die. I know I've been a Leaf fan, Stu. You've been a Leaf fan. You grew up in Scarborough. That's one thing. Before I die, I'm still a Leaf fan in heart, and I still want to see them win a Stanley Cup before anything goes down. But like they'd be living legends. There's nothing that they would have to do for the rest of their lives, and just show up in Toronto and you'd be taken care of.
Yeah, big time. What's your read on this team? Obviously, it's they're off to a pretty decent start. A bit of turbulency as is the case most Novembers, but it seems like they've weathered the storm a bit. Nylander's a rock star. What's your feel in this team?
It's always like every Leaf fan. We're gonna knock them down till they get good. But up front, they're unbelievable. They've got so much power. I think that third and fourth line, like you look at our team in Chicago in 2010 and 2013. I was kind of that third line grinder. I took down the Sedin twins. I took down Jumbo Joe. I was going against all these top lines, and I think as you look at it, those third and fourth lines, they win you guys games, and they win win championships. You got your star players, Matthews and Marner and Nylander. They're gonna be there every game. You're gonna get a goal or two out of them whenever, but when you get those third and fourth lines and you're shutting down those top lines and you can't get out there against them. And I remember Quinville had me out there against Taser and Kaner would be on, and the Sedin twins would come on, and Taser and Kane would come right off the ice. Then I'd be right on the ice. And those were just some of the I did whatever I could to win. If I had to get punched in the face a few times or stick the Sedins or whatever I had to do, that was my role. And hey, we won 2 Stanley Cups while I was there. They won an extra one, but it's those third and fourth lines that win you championships. And then I think they're missing a little bit of defense. I think you got Riley in that, but I think in the start of the season they were looking at Pietrangelo there, and I think he'd be a great fit. But it's just the way things go. But I think a little bit on the D and goaltending. But
Yeah, that's another conversation too,
That's
right?
a lot of ingredients missing there.
Dave's like, they need a brand new team.
Yeah, but I think every playoffs there seems to be like a players coming out party, and I think for you guys it was Big Buff, right? So when you look at this roster, like who's going to be that Big Buff or the Marshall, so the guy that sort of comes out of nowhere and turns into a star. So, looking at this roster, especially on that bottom six, like who can be that guy? Maybe it is a Robertson or something like that, but it's got to be built in that ilk, big, strong scoring. I think of Game 7, triple overtime, the type of goal that's being scored. I don't think it's coming off the rush, right? And going wide and going far out. It's going to be an ugly goal. So who's going to be that guy? So I think Bull's made a perfect point on that.
No, 100%. Like you said, Big Buff. Like, and then you got you talk about Big Buff, but then you talk like Andrew Ladd, myself. You talk about Steger. We had
Eager,
so much.
Eags.
There's a ton of us that like just throwing in an extra goal there. I remember Eager had a few extra goals there. Those are huge goals by fourth line. But then you had Big Buff that Pronger. Nobody could move Big Buff. Like he was just a truck, and he could fly down the wing. He could hammer you in front. Luongo hated him. Like nobody could move the guy. But those were, like you said, those are your unsung heroes that stepped up when you don't have Kaner and Taser, a few of those top guys, Sharpie, that maybe had an off night, but hey, we show up. It's kind of like you kind of got both lines going, but you got the top line, maybe not that night. You got our line going, so you gotta just have the presence of the whole team there.
I won't lie. I had that feel last spring when they brought in Ryan O'Reilly, and his DNA was all over the goals in the Tampa series, right? But I think specifically in this market, like we try to quantify how to win, what it means to win. I think it's so easy. Let's bring in a guy who's won. They did that with you. They did that with others. I get that. But like my question for you is like, back in your days in Chicago, was there a moment where you looked around, you saw some of the big boys on that roster really pull up their pants and say, you know what, we're going to do anything we need to do to win a hockey game? Sometimes I watch the Leafs in the playoffs and I just don't feel that way, sadly.
To be honest, that year we played against the Detroit Red Wings. The year, I think it was Pittsburgh and Detroit. I think Detroit won that year, right? We couldn't. Most of us could not believe how far we made it, but we had a good team. I got lined up against Datsuk, and I just got my show ran. I was like, Jesus, I'm like, this guy is unbelievable. He's stopping, popping me. I'm winless. Well, hit me right in the chest. Can't breathe. I'm like, how do I get around this guy? This guy's unbelievable. And that was a learning curve for us. We lost against them. We knew what it took to get to the finals, to the division. But we knew what it took. And I think that next year we came in, we got Host. Host just came off a final loss, Kopecky. And we had some guys that came in that year. And hey, that year we played in 2010. I think we went, I'm not sure, but I thought we went on like a 8 or 9 game losing streak, almost like the Oilers right now. But that's another question too. But I think we went on like a 6 or 7, maybe not 9 or 8, but we were like, oh my God, this is not good. But like you said, we stuck by each other. We knew what it took to get there from the year before. Host knew what it took to get to the finals, and we came in that next year and just blew it all up.
Yeah, so going back to that, Tampa Bay losing, to Columbus, I think in 4 straight. I think part of it was they were trying to get all these records. They had their foot on the gas the whole entire year. Going back to your cup runs, was it an aspect of the season where you said, hey, guys, we're not necessarily going to be going pedal to the metal, not take nights off, but just say, hey, you know what? We're not necessarily going to push so hard if we're down 3-1 in the middle of the third, knowing that it's an 82-game season. Because in this market, it just seems after every win, it's a big deal. And after every loss, it's an even bigger deal.
100%. It's a long season. I think once you go all the way to the end, what is it, like 120, 130 games that you play in your body. If I sent you a picture of me holding the cup in my jaw, you'd look at me and be like, oh my God, this guy needs a meal. Like,
yeah,
I was skin and bones. But it's a long season, and I know that season when I did come in 2010, I had some back issues. I had surgery on my back in November, so when I came in, I was well rested. I think I missed November, December, January. I think that was the Olympic year. My trainer's like, "Hey, if you don't come back for before the Olympics, you're not getting those 2 weeks off." So I was like, "Fuck!" I'm coming back. I'm getting back as fast as I can here. I want those 2 weeks off. I've had enough weeks off, but so when I came back, I was well rested. We were just getting probably about 30 games left in the season. I was ready to go once those playoffs came, and I was well rested. But there was other guys that have been through the year and been through the ringer. But we had guys that, and like you said, it's knowing your role. It's knowing the first line guys, what they do, the second line, third line, and fourth line. Everybody's just got to know their role, and as long as you're playing in between those, you're fine.
So, Bulls, the most polarizing conversation right now in Toronto stems with Willie Nylander. He's a rock star, as you mentioned off the top of the interview. He ripped it up in Sweden. What's your read on that? Obviously, I mean, you've been on that side when it comes to contract negotiations and talks and stuff like that. But where do you stand when it comes to the Nylander conversation?
I don't know. It's gonna get tough now because
yeah,
they just. I think every game goes by, he's making another million or $500,000 that they're gonna have to give him. So it's a tough situation. It's tough. It's either they do something now or they wait and lose him, or you see one of the top guys go. It's tough. There's many scenarios around it that I'm kind of stuck with what they're going to do.
Lastly,
right?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you're okay. I'm like you said. I'm like, what are they going to do? It's not like,
give them all the money. That's what they're gonna do. That's what they have to do.
Yeah,
that's
but
what they're gonna do. They have to do.
It's easy for a former player to say that, but that's my problem with this whole thing is like why does every fan think the Nylander camp has to win this? Like, why can't they meet in the middle? Like, anybody you talk to, it's like pay the man. It's like, do you not know what a salary cap is?
It's tough, but when you're playing, like I came my time in Toronto, I remember sitting there with Shanahan, and he was offering me not that much, and Florida came in and offered me more. You only got a certain time period to make a lot of money when you're playing. You don't know when your next injury was. I cut my peroneal tendon. I got in another year. I got in and got my contract, tried to keep up playing, and I just couldn't keep up anymore. My ankle was giving out. It was more on my mental side, trying to keep up. I know I could play the game, but with my ankle, I just couldn't keep up. And fortunately, I signed my 5-year deal and I got my money. But it's just one of those deals with Nylander. He's gonna want what he wants, and it's gonna be tough.
I just wanted to ask to wrap here. Patrick Kane, right? The Leafs have been linked to him. You played with Kaner. Cap aside, because I get it. Fit aside, like, what would a guy like Patrick Kane bring to the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Cool. Everything. You got him. You got more. He's a gamer. If you watch him during all of our series wins, he's in every situation, every goal, he's in it. Game-winning goals, 2010, most of game-winning goals against LA when we beat them. Game-winning goals against Vancouver. He's just going to bring everything to the table, and Kaner does not take losing well. He takes it pretty hard. So when he's on the ice, he wants the puck. Like, whenever you get the chance to give it to him. I just don't know how it's going to go with Marner, Matthews, Tavares. All these guys are going to want the puck, but it would look good for the Leafs. But I wouldn't say that's where the Leafs should be going. I think the Leafs should be looking for more on the back end and maybe the goaltending situation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's funny. I hate to lose. I've been watching Shoresy a lot. I think the Leafs need more guys who hate to lose, if you know what I'm saying. Bulls, this has been so much fun, man. Really appreciate it. I think next time we're going to talk just specifically Rich Monroe with you, okay?
Oh yeah, we'll have tons of stories about that.
I went to Funshaw, my guy.
Oh, Saugeen?
No, that Saugeen's Western, man.
Oh yeah, fun show. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, Bulls,
Awesome,
great
guys.
catching up, man. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
this.
Bulls. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thanks guys. Anytime you guys let me know.
Cool. Take care.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Dave Bolland, former Toronto Maple Leaf. I know one of my buddies who I worked with, actually. You know him, Jay Conn. Jay Conn's
Yep.
like the biggest Dave Bolland fan you can find in life. Like, he bought his jersey when he came to the Leafs.
Yeah, but you saw, talking about winning the Stanley Cup and the different elements and
Yeah.
ingredients, right? Yeah, you talk about the Canes and the Tays, and the Hosas, but again, it was the Bolands and the Lads
huge.
and
Yeah.
guys like Ben Eager, who scored some big goals. You need those tertiary guys, those guys that are going to step up. And again, I've never gone the distance in the playoffs and in the NHL, but I was in the minors. I think second round, Game 7, playing against Jamie Benn. And I was so tired. The only benefit to that was I did lose some weight, which is what I needed to do at the time. But it is so draining being in a 7-game series. Even that's only round 2. I couldn't imagine. I heard the stories of Hal Gill drinking a whole tin of BioSteel. Like, that's 60
Holy
scoops.
smokes.
That's 5,000 calories of juice, right? So
Yeah.
it's tough. It's a war of attrition, and you have to be mentally prepared to do it. And, people don't like hearing me say, as a former National Hockey League player, it's hard. And sometimes it's too hard. And there's times out there I'm like, man, I'm out here with Lidstrom and Datsuk. Like, this league is hard. So it takes a special type of person and group to go not just a round, but to go all 4 rounds and be successful. Like, you heard him talking about it. Like, my body was mangled. It's not taken away from war, but it's war. It's absolute war.
Would you agree with that sentiment that they need more guys who hate to lose? Like, I thought Ryan O'Reilly's that type of guy. I know people often scoff at that notion and everybody wants to win, but I just watch that team sometimes in the springtime, and it's like, just give me a bit more. Like, I loved guys like Dave Bolland, as you brought up, because it's like your supporting cast is sometimes even more important to score that big time goal. Because what's your one takeaway from this Leafs team the last, say, 3 postseason exits?
Well, I think it takes time,
right?
It takes time. No, it takes time to mature as a player, right? And your goals and your dreams sort of adjust as you get a little bit older, right? And I remember being, 19 years old with a, $150,000 car, but I literally had to park it on the track to motivate me to go for a run, because I'm like, I'm cruising around downtown Toronto. I'm driving around being the man. And then when you get a little bit earlier, you're like older, your perspective starts to change. So I think with this group, and I think that's why they haven't been making those moves and blowing up this group, because they're mature. They have their money, they have their house, they have everything they need, they have their term. So now they have to shift the focus on winning. So I think a year more of Nylander and Marner and Matthews, they just seem more mature in their game. You're seeing Matthews there, he's dominating. Nylander, there's the maturity in their game where it's not necessarily desperation, they're just more focused on what they need to do to win. And you're seeing Matthews on the penalty kill, you're seeing Nylander get to the net more. I don't care what the analytics say, he's getting to the net more. So it takes time. And I want to talk about Nylander. He's not taking any pay cut, and that's another thing too about this universe here. You're like, how many Leafs have left? Do you think Pierre Engvall's saying, "Oh man, I wish I worked out with the Leafs"? He's sitting there with an 8-year contract. Nylander is like, I'm getting my money. I had to eat crap on the last one. I had to sit out. I was underpaid for probably 3 of those years. I'm getting my money, whether it's here or there. So it's not my problem that there is a cap, Toronto. It's not my problem that you've given other guys 11 million. I'm proven that I am that guy, and that's what I am. So yes, I'll give you a little bit of a break if you put a little bit more up front and you give me a nice little 11 or 12 million on July 1st. And, maybe I'll break a little bit, on the number. But again, I was going back to my days in Atlanta, where I had a career high 40 points, and they're telling me, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. I'm like, you can say what you want. I'm getting a raise from 600,000. It was only to 900, but or $1 million, but I still got that bump. You can't tell. So the same with Nylander, he's taking in his stride, and he's just being laid back because he knows he's getting his money. He'd love to make it work in Toronto, but if you're coming at him with an 8.5 or a 9, it's not going to happen. And he'll go on to greener pastures, and he's shown he's consistent, and he's shown that wherever he ends up, he's going to have success.
All right. So, he can go somewhere, get his $15 million a year and lose in the first round every year. I guess nothing will change, but I don't know. It's
That's
to
fine,
me.
but that's some guys.
Yeah.
And you talk about the Tuckers and the Wendell Clarks. It takes a special type of person to care about that, right? And
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and there is the business side too, where again,
Yeah.
I'm sitting in negotiations on certain contracts, and I'm like, I wish I
Yeah.
did things differently because that team didn't care about me. They didn't care
Mhm.
about my long term health or anything like that. So it goes both ways, but
Yeah.
it does take a special type of person to say, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice dollars and cents because I want to win that Stanley Cup. But
Yeah.
there's reasons why Sakic and Yzerman and Shen, these guys are legends because they did it and they did it consistently. And for me, they're better hockey players. They're better hockey people than me because again, for me personally, I was like, oh man, I'm in the league. I'm making money. I'm great.
Yeah.
I didn't have the concept of what it took to win the Stanley Cup because I was on teams that wasn't the prerogative. When I was in
Yeah.
Florida, we didn't have the concept of the Stanley Cup. Same thing
Yeah.
in Atlanta. There, no, I don't think I played with any cup winners or anything like that.
No.
So it's tough. It's hard, Nick. And it
Yeah.
takes a special type of person. I know this is going to be the rant that ends up on socials, but yes,
No.
I wasn't good enough to win the Stanley Cup. But you look at a player like Smith Pelly and what he had to do and the goals that he had to score to help win. So special type of person. So don't give them slack if they're not that guy because they come few and far between.
And I would just add too that these guys have plenty of time to change their narrative. Oftentimes, I bring up Steven Stamkos. He didn't win till what? He was 30,
Yep.
around there at least. Alex Ovechkin. So, like, just because people look at these guys and it's probably outside of this market, they look at Matthews, they look at JT, they look at Nylander, Marner, all those guys, and say, hey, they can't win. They're unable to win. It takes one time for that narrative to change. Like, if you recall the first 10 years of Steven Stamkos' career, everybody was talking like that guy can't win the big one, can't get the job done. And now he's going to go down as one of the more winning players of his generation. It's crazy how quickly it can change, right?
Yeah, same thing as Ovechkin, like you mentioned,
Yep.
and Yzerman took him forever to win. I don't think he was
Yep,
making playoffs
exactly.
the first 5, 6, 7 years of his career too. So it's tough. And Brian Burke says it's your turn to win every 32 years. So I think the Leafs are just short. They're short on 2 cups, so they'll make it up hopefully in the next few seasons, right?
3 in a row I see for the Maple
Yeah.
Leafs starting this
Why
season.
not?
We got a new
Why not?
sponsor on the show. How about this, Reed? This segment is brought to you by Charm Diamond Center. I think it's really ironic. I'm reading something about proposals, but nevertheless, Charm Diamond Center is giving you a chance to win a $5,000 gift card. Become a champion with the propose. How would you propose? One knee, the bend, the snap. Do you remember how you proposed?
I think I was in a hotel room. I think, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah,
With
but
their,
I
with
think
their
I need a
rose
new
petals.
grill. I need a new diamond grill. I actually wore one in Florida, and one of the veterans actually stole it, and they mailed it to me like 5 years later. I'm like, how is it a 5-year practical joke?
Holy shit, man. The guys are pranksters, eh?
Like, guys, I missed that grill. That doesn't even fit because my teeth have shifted and all that. Like, that's a long practical joke. 5 years.
Man, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. Tag at Charm Diamonds on Instagram and post a story with a video or photo of your pro post. So again, just get that proposal going. Be sure to hashtag the proposed to be entered. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.ca.
All right, gang, listen up. It's time to learn the pro pose. Coach?
Bend and snap.
Beautiful form. Nice arm extension. Facial expression, could use some work. All right, let's see it. The pro pose. What's that guy doing?
I think that's the bend and snap.
That's a whole different deal. Charm, home of the pro pose. Oh!
I love it. The pro pose. And I tell you, this program has improved leaps and bounds. We have commercials now on our show, like live
Wow,
video
what a
commercials.
league. What a league.
Yeah, exactly. That's some
Actually a good
shit
commercial. I liked it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look them up.
So shout out to our new friends over at Charm Diamonds Center. Make sure to get that going again. You can tag at Charm Diamonds on Instagram and post your story with a video and $5,000 gift card on the line throughout the season. So make sure you get it in quickly. So you look at the practice notes. It sounds like Connor Timmins, man, is nearing a return. He was awesome. Like, I mean, awesome in training camp. It's training camp, so you take that with a bit of a grain of salt, but he was practicing with William Lagesson yesterday. What do you think Timmins can bring to this lineup?
Well, I think for him, the best ability is the availability. So he just has
Yeah.
to sort of stay healthy. And I think that's the main thing. And, I think the Leafs would be maybe a little bit more reluctant to make some of the moves they did, especially at the deadline last year and this year, because when healthy, he's close to point a game player. And again, yeah, maybe he's got to focus a little bit more on the defensive side, but that's where you partner him with a guy that's going to, keep it simple and simplify for him. So I think for him, I want to see what he can do with a 20, 25 game stretch, because if he comes in and does what he's capable of doing, I think the Leafs really question, do we really have to make a major move at the deadline like we had to do last year? Like for me, I think he could have done what Gustafsson did. You see what he's doing this year, close to a point a game as well. So I think when healthy and staying healthy, and that's a big part of it, I think he can have a very productive role on that Leafs blue line.
Man, John Klingberg's getting the full like Jared Cowan treatment right now. Like, remember when Cowan just like disappeared? Like we barely saw Klingberg in Sweden. I just don't know how you go from a guy who's regularly in the lineup. Now all of a sudden he's hurt, comes back for a game, and he's MIA. The only update they gave, we thought we're going to have some clarity on Klingberg this week. All they said yesterday, he'll be unavailable to play this weekend. I have no clue what that means, but it seems like this guy is headed, like he's got business class for Robidas Island in that ticket.
It's tough to speculate, right? But it's, the only day that you are healthy on the NHL is day one, and guys deal with stuff all the time. And again, you're an athlete, you've played baseball, know, if it's your hip or your groin or your shoulders or your back, some of these injuries are so nagging where you have to fight through the pain, and guys are taking, injection shots to numb the pain. Sometimes it's just too much. And I've done that. I played against my brother with a grade 1 MCA sprain in my knee. And that is the most painful. It's more painful than a tear. But I said, I cannot miss that game. But the damage I did playing that game, because it was my first game against my brother, I missed a month. And added 2 weeks of recovery time. So again, I don't want to speculate, but again, it's when you make 7-8 moves in the offseason, what are the chances and the odds that you're going to hit on every single one? It's usually 50%. You're happy, right? So for him, I don't think it's working out. I think he was doing a decent job on the power play with his lateral movement, moving it to the left and right flanks. But again, I think they just need a little bit more stability, right? Protecting the goalie, insulating the goalie, getting pucks out, having good reads in the D zone, not letting pucks go through seams. And I think that's where he struggled. I think that's where the Leafs are looking to solidify for their back end.
To me, it's a lazy excuse to say, oh, he's injured. Last time I checked, blown zone assignments are not because you're injured. Like watching Klingberg play, I thought he was a forward throughout the year. Is that because he was injured? He thought he was a forward, or?
I don't know, but I'm not getting into the battle. There was some speculation on the goaltender that was hurt too, and then he ends up getting surgery, and everyone's like, "Oh, okay, I guess he really was hurt."
I want the doctors know. I want the fucking doctors know.
You need to see the surgery pictures. You need to see the X-rays. You need to see the blood reports.
Stewie, answer this. You saw opening night. You saw what was going on there, right? This guy's hurt. Like they paraded him out there to tell me the guy's injured to put him on LTIR. Like, give me a break. I understand.
If I'm not hurt, you're not keeping me out of the line. Scratch me. Put it on the record that you're scratching me. And that's the thing. Hockey players are very, very prideful. You're not just going to disappear into the wind. Yeah, if I'm sitting on 4 or 5 years and I can disappear. But this guy was supposed to get a 7-year, $8 million contract, and he's 2 years into signing for 7 and 4. So he wants to go make his, he still wants to perform because he wants to probably get another payday for the next 3, 4, 5 years. So for him just to say, I'm going to sit back and disappear into thin air into Robidas Island, usually there's a nice big bag of cash that goes with it, not freaking $2.5 million. That's not enough to disappear me. I need more money, Nick. Give me 20 million. I'll disappear. Not
you think he
3.
SPF 30 to Robidas Island? Like, what's the weather like over there?
I don't know. You're there. You're closer to there than I am. But again, I don't think I've ever been bought out. I've been sent down. I got sent down to the minors, so I didn't have to pay escrow. So I made an extra probably $150K. But again, there's pride, and if you're disappearing, guys, there's a lot more money attached to it, a bigger price tag.
Hey, Lou Lamoriello started this years ago with the Leafs, but even with Klingberg, like you're telling me they didn't do their due diligence and they're like, yeah, I have a nagging injury. Let's pay this guy $4.15
Not
million
in
on a
this
1-year
market.
deal.
They needed a win. They lost out on Shen. They needed a perceived win. And signing Klingberg, I think everybody was like, whoa, yeah. He was in the same conversation as Heiskanen. And, we know Anaheim was an outlier. We knew Rangers were an outlier, or Minnesota was an outlier. He's going to come in, run PP1, put up 80 points, and then now we're going to have a problem because we can't afford him, and he's going to jump on Nylander's back. They're going to fly together first class and land somewhere at 10.5, 12 million, and 5 million collectively. But it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. I hate to pile on Klingberg. I've actually been a big fan of his game, like more so when he's with Dallas. But like, again, it was just a head scratcher from the beginning. You saw, like, dude, he was the 7th defenseman on Minnesota last year after it didn't work in Anaheim, one of the shittiest teams in the league last year. And he went for like peanuts at the deadline. Like, he was a walking red flag. But nevertheless, like, we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. Just anytime that type of stuff happens in recent memory with this team, it's like, what's going on behind the scenes? I'd love like that Blueprint series that I was in a couple years ago. Remember when I was the radio voice of the Leafs?
Yeah, it's going to be like the cameras are like panning to Klingberg and he has to like, oh man, then jump on the table. Oh, my leg.
No, like this is how the conversation, it's like that that Kevin Nash gif. You know, it sits up. Like that's
cut, and then he gets out and takes the blanket off. Yeah, but
I was worse on Matt Murray last year.
There's got to be something, and it's got to be semi-serious because you can't.
Yeah.
Again, the agents won't be having it. The players, the PA won't be having it. You can't be fake. You can't be faking injuries. You can't.
Dude. Okay. Well,
if you're 38 years old and you got 4 more years and you got, there's left on your contract and they don't want to pay the recapture penalty. Yeah, I can understand that. But this guy he still has got to recoup some of that $55 million that was on the table for him 3 years ago.
Buddy, he's going to go see your statue in the KHL. That's where Klingberg's going next. Do they have a statue for you out there?
Yeah, in the Russian gas room. Yeah, that's where it is.
Brought to you by Betano, the 2023 EGR winner for both the Best Sportsbook Operator of the Year and Best In-Play Sports Operator Awards. The game starts now. You big into betting on football? You got any plays for me today? I hate football.
I don't know who's playing, but whenever you have Baltimore, Buffalo, the Commanders,
those are your teams?
Pick the under. Okay. Go with the under.
Wow.
I usually do the over/under. You don't want to be cheering against non-scoring, but I like picking the under on some games.
Hey, do you like this theory when it comes to betting the over NHL wise around Thanksgiving? Like I hit a couple of overs last night. I think the majority were overs, and I think we can translate into that quick conversation about tomorrow's game against Chicago. I'm trying to like figure out what I should bet on tomorrow with that Leafs game because part of me is like they haven't played in a while. They're coming back for Sweden. But I think that attention to detail could be a big thing tomorrow in that game.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be Bedard versus Matthews, and they want to score lots of goals. So I think there's going to be 8 or 9 between the two of them.
Yeah, you like the over?
The over on that. Yeah. Not attention to detail.
Fair enough.
A lot of over. Yeah, but if it doesn't hit, don't come looking for me. You don't know where I live, but so don't even look.
I will show up. I will show up at the Scarborough Town Center, and I'll just yell your name out.
You'll see me at the Moxies there. Yeah, see me at the Moxies.
Pretty much. You probably have rental space there. Aaron, producer Aaron, Lions money line, Cowboys spread, 49ers money line. So that's the official bet of the show. Stewie, this was a blast, man. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks for having me as always, Nick.
The one, the only, Anthony Stewart, the Stew Cat. Many thanks to Dave Bolland for dropping by. Producer Aaron, fantastic. The chat was on fire at the Leafs Nation 401. You talked about Brian Burke. We had him on yesterday. Go back and watch that interview. Surprise, surprise, he's still a big-time believer in Ryan Reeves. Are you stunned by that?
Again, there's the politics behind it. You sign a guy for 3 years and you're burying him after 10. That's going to be tough to be recouping some free agents down the line. Same thing with Patrick Laine. So, again, you sign him for 3 years, you got to give him another chance. But right now, the fourth line's clicking, so he's just got to wait his opportunity. But to write him completely off at this point doesn't make sense.
It's too bad we ran out of time. I wanted to get your breakdown of Jack Campbell's 5 starts in the AHL, but we'll do that next time. Okay, thanks, Stewie.
Jack who?
Yeah, exactly. That's Anthony Stewart. I'm Nick Alberga. Peace out. We'll talk tomorrow.
Thank you for watching Leafs Morning Take. Hit that subscribe button and never miss a show. And for more, visit theleafsnation.com. THELEAFSNATION.com. If you don't know how to spell the Leafs Nation, you know what I mean? But hey, sometimes you never know.